Today we are making sauerkraut 3 ways. You will need salt, cabbage, orange and apple. Way is optional. Now what you're going to do is you're going to peel the outer leaves of the cabbage. Keep some big leaves for later so that we can weigh the veggies down underneath the brine. I'm trying to keep them as big as possible and I'm trying not to tear them. The bigger the better. Now I'm chopping the cabbage in half. Then I'm going to chop it into quarters. So half again. You can decide whether you want to core your cabbage or whether you want to keep your cabbage whole. Just like when cooking, the harder parts, like the core, takes a bit longer to mature. I'm cutting the cabbage into thin slices. You can even blend the cabbage if you prefer. It all depends on how you like your sauerkraut to end up. Traditionally, cabbage is sliced as thin as possible with a cabbage slicer. Some places sell these sauerkraut sets with the kraut cutter, pound and crock. But a knife can do just as good a job. It's also better for me to use a flip-top jar. A glass jar allows me to see exactly what is going on in the ferment. So here I'm continuing with my chopping. This is a dry brining method and here I'm getting ready to start the massaging of the salt into the cabbage so that we can create a brine. Weigh your cabbage and add 22 grams of salt per 2.3 kilograms of cabbage. But it's easier to remember 20 grams of salt to 2 kilograms of cabbage, and that is the ratio that I use each and every time successfully. If you don't have a scale, you can fill a liter jar with 8 cups of loosely packed cabbage and then just add 1 to 3 tablespoons of salt. In the winter you will use less salt and in the summer you'll use more salt. Here I'm just massaging the salt into the cabbage to create the brine. Just look how the volume reduces as the brine starts to form. The cabbage can be covered and left for 30 minutes or even left to overnight. And this is to draw more brine, making it easier so that you don't have to punch and massage that intensively. This is now after 45 minutes. And as you can see, there is some brine development. Just look at the brine dripping from the kraut. While letting osmosis do its thing, I'm getting the apple ready by slicing it in thinnish medium discs. The apple not only adds to flavor, but it also adds to prebiotics, and the prebiotics is food for the probiotics, basically amplifying your probiotics even more. We are using 2 apples, 1 grated and 1 sliced. So let's start packing. I'm placing the apple slices where I would like to see it, then I'm securing it with the kraut. Now I'm doing the same with the other sides. Getting the second apple ready by grating it. This is totally optional, you don't have to add the grated apple. The apple brings more crispness freshness and a different type of tang to the kraut. The same can be done with peaches or any other fruit of your choice. Here I'm stuffing the jar and having some fun. I think this is enough brine that I've formed. Now I'm pressing the ferment down with a cabbage leaf. This is to keep the cabbage under the brine. The orange kraut. Cut the orange up into thinnish medium slices. Make sure that you don't use too much orange because then it's going to taste like marmalade kraut. It ends up too bitter. Put a bit of cabbage in the jar, enough to secure the orange slices. Slide the orange slices into the jar. The oranges add to vitamin C and also prebiotics. Even the kraut by itself synthesizes more vitamin C. That's why Captain James Cook took sauerkraut on his voyages to protect his sailors from getting scurvy. This is the console jar in a jar. The little jar inside is going to act as a way to keep the ferment beneath the brine. You can add anything to your plain kraut to pimp it up a bit. Have a look in the recipe book, the Fermented Veggie recipe book that I've included. There's a lot of suggestions that you can use to make the perfect sauerkraut to your liking. Or you can just make it plain sauerkraut if you like. Now I'm pouring the brine into the jars. As you can see, there's more than enough brine to cover all the veggies. Here I'm adding a bit of raisins to the orange kraut for more flavor. I even made a raisin chutney and that's really fun. It turned out great. Mind you, go and have a look in the recipe book, you should find it there as well. I'm using this rolling pin. It's a Chinese rolling pin that I got from Chinatown. It's cheap and it works perfectly. Here I'm tucking in the cabbage leaves and making sure that all the cabbage is beneath the brine. Here I'm closing the jar, but not too tightly because I want the carbon dioxide to escape. To be sure that the bugs are kept out, you can close the jar with a cloth and rubber band like I've done here. When doing this, just remember not to pick up the jar by the lid. If you're new to fermented vegetables, keep the kraut on your countertop or on top of your fridge for 7 to 14 days, then you can taste test it. But if you're used to eating fermented food, then you can leave your kraut for a month, even longer, and then only taste test. Just make sure that there's always enough liquid covering your kraut. You don't want your vegetables to be exposed to air because that attracts pathogenic bacteria that can cause mold growth. All of the best. I know you'll make a great success out of this, and if you have any questions, please let me know via the group and I'll be happy to help. Enjoy. Bye bye.